Book 9 of the Odyssey. During 7 of Odysseus's 10 years in the Mediterranean Sea, he is held captive by the goddess Calypso. Odysseus finally persuades Calypso to let him go, and she helps him build a raft to leave her island. After Odysseus sails away, his raft is destroyed by storms. Alone and exhausted, Odysseus is washed up on the land of Phaeacians, where Alcinous is king. Alcinous gives a banquet in honor of Odysseus and asks him to reveal who he is and where he came from. Odysseus relates to the king his adventures up to that time. His account makes up books 9 through 12 of the Odyssey. Book 9, New Coasts in Poseidon's Son. What shall I say first? What shall I keep until the end? The gods have tried me in 1,000 ways. But first, my name, let that be known to you. And if I pull away from pitiless death, friendship will bind us, though my land lies far. I am Laertes' son, Odysseus. Men hold me formidable for guile in peace and war, and this fame has gone abroad to the sky's rim. My home is on the peaked seamark of Ithaca, under Mount Neon's wind-blown robe of leaves, in sight of other islands, Dulichium, Same, wooded Zykineth, Ithaca being most lofty in that coastal sea, in northwest, while the rest lie east and south. A rocky isle, but good for a boy's training. I shall not see on earth a place more dear, though I have been detained long by Calypso, loveliest among goddesses, who held me in her smooth caves to be her heart's delight. As Circe of Aea, the enchantress, desired me and detained me in her hall. But in my heart I never gave consent. Where shall a man find sweetness to surpass his own home and his parents? In far lands he shall not, though he find a house of gold. What then of my sailing from Troy? What of those years of rough adventure weathered under Zeus? Soon after leaving Troy, Odysseus and his crew land near Ismarus, the city of the Ceanese. The Ceanese are allies of the Trojans and therefore enemies of Odysseus. Odysseus and his crew raid the Ceanese, robbing and killing people until the Ceonian army kills 72 of Odysseus's men and drives the rest out to sea. Delayed by a storm for 2 days, Odysseus and his remaining companions continue their journey. I might have made it safely home that time, but as I came round Malea, the current took me out to sea, and from the north a fresh gale drove me on past Cythera. 9 days I drifted on the teeming sea before dangerous high winds. Upon the 10th we came to the coastline of the lotus eaters, who live upon that flower. We landed there to take on water. All ships' companies mustered alongside for the midday meal. Then I sent out 2 picked men and a runner to learn what race of men that land sustained. They fell in soon enough with lotus eaters, who showed no will to do us harm, only offering the sweet lotus to our friends. But those who ate this honeyed plant, the lotus, never cared to report nor return. They longed to stay forever, browsing on that native bloom, forgetful of their homeland. I drove them all 3 wailing to the ships, tied them down under their rowing benches, and called out to the rest, "All hands aboard, come, clear the beach, and no one taste the lotus, or you'll lose your hope of home." Filing into their places by the rowlocks, my oarmen dipped their long oars in the surf, and we moved out again on our seafaring. In the next land we found were Cyclops, giants, louts, without a law to bless them. In ignorance, leaving the fruitage of the earth in mystery to the immortal gods. They neither plow nor sow by hand, nor till the ground, though grain, wild wheat and barley, grows unattended, and wine grapes in clusters ripen in heaven's rain. The Cyclops have no muster and no meeting, no consultation or old tribal ways, but each one dwells in his own mountain cave, dealing out rough justice to wife and child, indifferent to what the others do. Across the bay from the land of the Cyclops is a lush, deserted island. Odysseus and his crew land on the island in a dense fog and spend several days feasting on wine and wild goats, observing the mainland, where the Cyclops live. On the third day, Odysseus and his company of men set out to learn if the Cyclops are friends or foes. When the young dawn with fingertips of rose came in the east, I called my men together and made a speech to them. Old shipmates, friends, and the rest of you stand by. I'll make the crossing in my own ship with my own company and find out what the mainland natives are. For they may be wild savages and lawless, or they may be hospitable, God-fearing men. At this I went aboard and gave the word to cast off by the stern. My oarsmen followed, filing into their benches by the rowlocks, and all in line dipped oars in the gray sea. As we rowed on and nearer to the mainland, at one end of the bay we saw a cavern yawning above the water, screened with laurel, and many rams and goats about the place inside a sheepfold, made from slabs of stone, earth fast between tall trunks of pine and rugged towering oak trees. A prodigious man slept in this cave alone, and took his flocks to graze a field, remote from all companions, knowing none but savage ways, a brute so huge he seemed no man at all of those who eat good wheaten bread, but he seemed rather a shaggy mountain reared in solitude. We beached there, and I told the crew to stand by and keep watch over the ship. As for myself, I took my 12 best fighters and went ahead. I had a goat skin full of that sweet liquor that Euanthes' son Marin had given me. He kept Apollo's holy grove at Ismarus. For kindness that we showed him there and showed his wife and child, he gave me 7 shining golden talents, perfectly formed, a solid silver wine bowl, and then this liquor, 12 two-handled jars of brandy, pure and fiery. Not a slave in Marin's household knew this drink. Only he, his wife, and the storeroom mistress knew. And they would pour 1 cupful, ruby-colored, honey-smooth, and 20 more of water, but still the sweet scent hovered like a fume over the wine bowl. No man turned away when cups of this came round. A wineskin full I brought along, and victuals in a bag, for in my bones I knew some towering brute would be upon us soon, all outward power, a wild man, ignorant of civility. We climbed then briskly to the cave, but Cyclops had gone afield to pasture his fat sheep, so we looked around at everything inside. A drying rack that sagged with cheeses, pens crowded with lambs and kids, each in its class, firstlings apart from middlings, and the dewdrops, or newborn lambkins, penned apart from both. And vessels full of whey were brimming there, bowls of earthenware and pails for milking. My men came pressing around me, pleading, "Why not take these cheeses, get them stowed, come back, throw open all the pens, and make a run for it? We'll drive the kids and lambs aboard. We say put out on good salt water." Ah, how sound that was, yet I refused. I wished to see the caveman and what he had to offer. No pretty sight it turned out for my friends. We lit a fire, burnt an offering, and took some cheese to eat. Then we sat in silence around the embers waiting. When he came, he had a load of dry boughs on his shoulders to stoke his fire at supper time. He dumped it with a great crash into that hollow cave, and we all scattered fast to the far wall. Then over the broad cavern floor he ushered the ewes he meant to milk. He left his rams and he-goats in the yard outside, and swung high overhead a slab of solid rock to close the cave. 24 four-wheeled wagons with heaving wagon teams could not have stirred the tonnage of that rock from where he wedged it over the doorsill. Next he took his seat and milked his bleating ewes. A practice job he made of it, giving each ewe her suckling, thickened his milk, then into curds and whey, sieved out the curds to drip in withy baskets, and poured the whey to stand in bowls, cooling until he drank it for his supper. When all these chores were done, he poked the fire, heaping on the brushwood, and in the glare he saw us. "Strangers," he said, "who are you, and where from? What brings you here by seaways, a fair traffic, or are you wandering rogues who cast your lives like dice and ravage other folk by sea?" We felt a pressure on our hearts in dread of that deep rumble in that mighty man. But all the same I spoke up in reply. "We are from Troy, Achaeans, blown off course by shifting gales in the great South Sea, homeward bound, but taking roots in ways uncommon. So the will of Zeus would have it. We served under Agamemnon, son of Atreus. The whole world knows what city he laid waste, what armies he destroyed. It was our luck to come here, and here we stand, beholden for your help, or any gifts you give, as custom is to honor strangers. We would entreat you, great sir, have a care for the gods' courtesy. Zeus will avenge the unoffending guest." He answered from his brute chest unmoved. "You are a ninny, or else you come from the other end of nowhere, telling me to mind the gods. We Cyclops care not a whistle for your thundering Zeus or all the gods in bliss. We have more force by far. I would not let you go for fear of Zeus, you or your friends, unless I had a whim to. Tell me, where was it now you left your ship? Around the point or down the shore, I wonder?" He thought he'd find out, but I saw through this and answered with a ready lie. "My ship, Poseidon Lord, who sets the earth a-tremble, broke it up on the rocks at your land's end. A wind from far seaward served him and drove us there. We are survivors, these good men and I." Neither reply nor pity came from him, but in one stride he clutched at my companions and caught two in his hands like squirming puppies to beat their brains out, spattering the floor. Then he dismembered them and made his meal, gaping and crunching like a mountain lion, everything, innards, flesh, and marrow bones. We cried aloud, lifting our hands to Zeus, powerless, looking on at this, appalled. But Cyclops went on, filling up his belly with man-flesh in great gulps of whey, then lay down like a mast among his sheep. My heart beat high now at the chance of action, and drawing the sharp sword from my hip, I went along his flank to stab him where the midriff holds the liver. I had touched the spot when sudden fear stayed me. For if I killed him, we perished there as well, for we could never move his ponderous doorway slab aside. So we were left to groan and wait for morning.